This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price you can get Truefire All Access for.
Okay, in this video, I wanted to discuss what I think are the new sort of frontiers within digital modeling. I know I've done a video in the past talking about digital modeling singularity, which for me was kind of getting to the point that actually most devices are going to have, you know, a similar feature set. Probably most of them, you know, 2025 onwards are going to have touchscreens. Most of them are going to have, you know, similar sounding models and all that sort of stuff, because the idea is that they're all trying to answer the same question, which is like, how can we provide the most models and rigs and stuff that are going to represent best the gigging public or the guitar playing public. So that is why essentially that I think by the time that things add things like capture, tone matching or NAM capability, which the Chinese brands have been quickest to be honest, I think you essentially have boxes which do more or less the same thing. However, there is a huge frontier still to be scaled, explored, which I think is this ease of use thing. So let's get into that in this video a little bit, because I wanted to give you some examples of stuff which I think are fairly groundbreaking, but that I think there's still work to be done in this area, and we won't know it until we see it. Anyway, when the Tone Master Pro first came out, I thought like this touchscreeny element was a bit of a gimmick, just because some of the things that, you know, we've seen touchscreens before, headrush and stuff like that. It actually does look quite a lot like the headrush thing. However, there are some real, you know, bits and pieces going on here. So let me try and get into a new, right, empty. So for example, we're on an empty thing, add block. So if I wanted to add, you know, a Timmy, I can't do it upside down, can I? That's very obvious. Right. Confirm. Then, right, add. This is going well, isn't it? But effects, delay, stereo delay, confirm, prick. Anyway, 59 Bassman custom, confirm. Put that between those two. But the point being really that, and it has been up until this point, being very quick to build sort of more complex chains of effects or bits and pieces like that. This is the one thing that I've found that the Tone Master Pro I think it does better than pretty much anything. This is one of those things which is very quick to do that on. One of the things that Helix does quicker than anything else, highlight a block and just touch. And then you can assign a foot switch in that way. And then you've got an assignment. It automatically does the colors for you. Likewise, you know, you can just add other assignments if you wanted to the same block. So now I'm going to try and add the reverb to this dual delay block. Merge type. So now that does two things. That's reverb and delay on the same switch. Little things like this, which this is a 2015 device, right? So it shows me, you know, this is a thing that really only the Helix has figured out, the capacitive touch foot switching thing. Somewhere in amongst all of this, right, you could imagine there'd be a touchscreen device that has like the quickness of adding blocks like that ToneMaster Pro, but then has the quickness of assigning those to foot switches like the Helix. I think most units sound pretty good. This is the area though that the Chinese devices, to me, don't seem to have figured out as well as like the Fender ToneMaster Pro, the Helix, the Fractal, Kemper. It seems to me that these are the devices that are pushing for actual usability and making things quicker for you to get from, you know, not having a preset to having something which is sounding how you intend it to and is all ready to gig. Is kind of, I think, the huge difference between something like the 250-ish pounds NUX Amp Academy Stomp. There's tonal things as well, actually. So like when I plugged into this, I could dial things in and try to get things sounding how I want. And you can get within a ballpark, but I do think like there's a missing edge. The Hot One Hotone is what I actually call it. Ampera, I think, is kind of, to me, the best of the rest in terms of like one that isn't part of like the big modeling group. NUX get close, I think, but the ease of use is just not there yet. And I think that's one of those things that, you know, it might not be the easiest to tell in a video, but, you know, this was actually, took me time to figure out how to use it and got frustrating. And then I was like, right, I'm just going to use the editor, get into that. Whereas the ToneMaster Pro, like, I've gone from 0 to gig within sort of minutes, and that is, I think, the real sort of big difference still. And also in terms of like the logic of how things are done, a lot of these units that are post Helix in the Western world, you know, like the Quad Cortex or this ToneMaster Pro or Fractal, there is a logic to them and like a bit more flexibility to the foot switching, but also a bit more, you know, like you saw how easy it was to set up the Helix foot switch, yeah, where you're just like touching a thing, where foot switching doesn't have to necessarily get into a menu. That is one little downside of the ToneMaster Pro for me, where you have to go in and assign each foot switch, so that just sort of takes an amount of time, whereas the Helix kind of automatically does that for you, or pretty much it feels seamless, like you're not thinking, all right, I need to assign that. It's just like touch, done, which button do you want to do what. When you see how seamless that Helix foot switching thing is, it does give you an idea of like how seamless pretty much every part of the digital modeling experience could or should be. And that to me is how you know that there's still like a long way to go. So I think that is one of the things that the ToneMaster Pro has cracked, is that you don't need a manual to figure out what's going on with it. It's going to be pretty easy for almost anyone to use. Therefore, I think that is why people are grabbing them. But also it shows that there's still work to be done in this area, and that the digital modeling experience doesn't need to necessarily be frustrating or menu-led. I do think that's what's exciting about that Helix Stadium focus view and stuff like that, where it's like moving away from a menu-led situation to something which is a bit more like, well, you can do whatever you want because it's digital modeling, right? There's no reason necessarily that everything needs to be within a complex menu system also like Meris, although it was kind of complex to use, like the LVX, I think they had some interesting ideas with the LVX and the Mercury X about how you could do something slightly different, you know, like a menu doesn't have to look like every other menu. At the end, that was more of a style than a substance thing, I think. But it shows to me that there is still, you know, great potential. I feel like we're just sort of scratching the surface of what these things are going to be. I initially thought of the ToneMaster Pro as like a bit of the end of the next generation before something comes and blows it out of the water. I've kind of changed my mind now, whereas I think actually it's like a more of a steady thing that, you know, the Helix Native in 2015 was like a statement, but the next things that come along are just going to be like building on that statement until there's another sort of like full statement. You know, even like that Lava Studio thing, which is sort of building on some of these same sort of concepts about something that is easy to use, that is not going to take you ages to figure out, does not need you to read a manual necessarily. I think that is still where there's a big amount of work to be done to get to the future of digital modeling, in my opinion.